Reverend Guitars. What are they? How awesome are they? Why should you have one? And who's this amazing looking man to my left? All that and more coming right up.
Let her rip.
We are here in the Reverend secret underground bunker lair. This amazing man to my left, Ken Haas, CEO, Reverend Guitars.
He's talking me up.
Ken, how you doing?
I'm doing just great. How are you today?
Man, we're in beautiful, sunny Toledo, Ohio. It's a balmy 41 degrees outside. We're sweating like crazy. But inside here, it's all hot.
Yeah, it's where the rock's made.
This is where the rock's made. Mm-hmm. Right up in here, as the kids say.
Mm-hmm.
We're down with what the kids say. Mm-hmm. All the time. All the time.
Ken,
it's
a heckin' good time.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
It's a heckin' good. You're a heckin' good boy.
Heckin' is the whitest word ever.
It is. My son drops the heckin' all the time.
I love it.
I do too.
Ken, why Reverend Guitars? Why
not Reverend Guitars?
Why not Reverend Guitars? What made you fall in love with Reverend Guitars?
Oh, this is a fun story. So, 20 years ago, I was in a band called the Kids from Krypton. And that was, it was rap metal is what it was. I ain't gonna lie to you. Crip, get it? And it was fun. We had some classic hit singles, Stalker, good stuff.
Excellent.
And look it up online at your own risk and not around your children. And we were having some fun with this goofy band. And we were playing bigger and bigger stages all around the state. And we did some shows with this Kid Rock fella. And I saw him playing these cool guitars. And so it sort of stuck in my head, like, what's that? Bob is his name. He's from the Detroit area. Longtime Detroit local music sort of staple. Pretty okay guy. And I walk into one of those like musical around franchise buy, sell, trade, used store places, and there's this guitar hanging on the wall, and it's blue and white, and it says East Point, Michigan on the headstock, and I'm like, East Point, Michigan, that's right over there. And this was at a time when I was selling auto paint. I might have brought that up. And along with the auto paint, I sold tape and sandpaper and stuff, and I was thinking to myself, well, he's got to use some of the products that I sell making those guitars. So I looked up his address and went over and knocked on the door. And this was back in the day when I think I found him in the phone book to get the address. Remember those?
It was you
it's hard to believe how
in your car to look it up.
Yeah. It's hard to believe how things have changed in the last 20 years when it comes to that sort of thing, and especially for sales, right? It's ridiculous. So I just went and knocked on the door, and hi, my name's Ken. And Joe Naylor answered the door. And at the time, it was in East Point, Michigan, in a roll-up garage that was only slightly bigger than the room that we're sitting in. And there were all sorts of machines along one corner of the wall, and a desk in the other corner, and tables in the middle, and guys building guitar bodies and bolting necks onto these guitar bodies. It was a crazy little place. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I introduced myself to Joe. I'm like, I got one of your guitars. I play in this band. I sell sandpaper. And Joe's like, oh, well, I use this belt, and we use this grit on this, and we use this grit to finish, and do you have this and that? And I'm like, dude, not only do I have that stuff, I have better stuff than you're using, probably for less money, because sales. And
sales.
And so Joe, like, bought all the sandpaper from me. So then I had to call on him, like, every other week.
Sure.
Right, but of course he bought like 3 years worth of sandpaper from me in one time, because it's not like they were working on cars, you know what I mean? Right. It's like they're building little guitar bodies. So, but anyways, I started calling on him, and he and I became fast friends. He started coming out and seeing the band, and interestingly, of course, Bob Kid Rock went on to be Kid Rock. I mean, right around this time in the late 90s, he blew up. He was holding a Reverend on the cover of was that American Badass that he's doing this. And that did a lot for Joe and for the company as far as putting us on the national visible
radar.
Thanks. Yeah, it really did. It gave Joe something to go to dealers and distributors with and go, hey, look, we've got this guy. He's huge. He's playing our stuff. And it was really, really cool. He had a really good relationship with Joe. Joe had a little buy-sell trade music store, as I alluded to before, where he worked on vintage guitars and got them playable for people. And he helped Kid Rock and his band gather up equipment and stuff to go on their first tour, because all that stuff happened just overnight. And when the real money started flying around and other members of Joe's band went to other places, Kid himself stuck with Reverend for many years. And so it was very, very, he was, instrumental in sort of kicking this thing off. And it's funny, we talk about that in our archives. We have slides and, proof sheets of the original ads that feature him, where they put the film on the photo paper and you get the proof sheets and you look at it, right, to build the advertisements. Yeah. That was only 20 years ago, and that's now, crazy. I mean, all of that is like, you wouldn't even, that seems so antiquated. And so the only reason why I bring that up is because it's interesting to me that we've been in this business now for 22 years, and we're the new kids. We're like the young guys, you know what I mean? Because the companies that we compete with largely have been around for at least 40. Right? I mean, there's a handful of companies that started in the 80s. And then, of course, some of the import companies like Ibanez and stuff started in the 70s really working here. I mean, they started in the 50s and 60s, but really in the U.S. they were a 70s thing. But the big companies are, early 40s, and then, of course, over 100 years old.
Right.
There's Guitar Martin's been around for 150 years. I mean, we don't compete with Martin, obviously. But so we're like the young kids. But even in the 20 years that we've been here, it's amazing how doing this business has changed.
It's true.
All of that being said, so Joe and I got to be really good friends. And he... One day, when I was just hanging out in the shop in early '99, they were getting ready for the Summer NAMM show in Nashville. And I don't know if how long have you been in this business? I should ask you questions.
Not that long, but a while.
NAMM in Nashville used to be enormous. It was really something. It was a spectacle. It's changed quite a bit now. But it used to be very, very guitar heavy, and all the guitar manufacturers and amp manufacturers went, and it bled out of Nashville's original convention center and into the arena and into the hallways all around it, and all the extra rooms in the hotels. It was really something.
That was before. Now, were they the same size, winter and summer?
No, they were. No, winter.
Still the bigger one.
Since then, at least, yeah, winter's still the bigger one. Winter draws all the international stuff, and so you get the pianos and the horns and the drums and all of that stuff. Whereas summer tends to be a little bit more focused on
guitar and
what do you guys call it? Combo.
That's right. That's right.
That which is an old term. Yeah, that's a term that goes way back.
Forever.
Yeah. It's all that stuff interests me. So at any rate, Joe asked me if they were preparing all these guitars for the NAMM show, and I was like, "What's that?" Because remember, I played rock guitar in bands and was a paint salesman. And while I used to read the guitar magazines cover to cover, I guess it never clicked with me. And he told me, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." And he's like, "Why don't you come with me?" And I was like, "Sir, yeah, I'll get you a visitor badge, and you just got to get yourself to Nashville and get a hotel room." And I was like, "Cool." So I went down to Nashville with the bass player of the band I was in at the time, and I walked into the door of the NAMM show and froze. And I looked around at all of everything that I could see. At the time, you looked down into the Nashville Convention Center. When you came in, there was like an upstairs, and so you could stand upstairs and overlook the floor. And I remember standing there and looking across the floor and seeing Joe, and seeing Gibson's trailer and Ibanez and Marshall had a big giant room behind me, and Jim Marshall was there signing autographs, and I have an autographed Jim Marshall T-shirt at my house, and I saw all of this stuff, and I went, oh, shit, I'm screwing up my life. Like, I was 30 years old, and I realized that I was not where I wanted to be, because the gear just fascinates me, and I know it fascinates a lot of us. Sure. Obviously, look at what you guys do, the gear, but I never wanted to be in retail. I came from a wholesale background, doing automotive stuff, and I had never thought about the wholesale side of this business and what it meant and what it was. And I was just completely blown away. So I was more relaxed than I ever had been. And I was just chilling out at the NAMM show, and I was hanging out with this girl I met at this company. They make these really cool things called strum sticks. If you know McNally. And I had never seen that before. And I'm hanging out with her and Bob, and Will Ray comes walking into the booth from the Helicasters. And I'm like, it hadn't occurred to me up to that point that guys like Will Ray just walk around shows like this, right? I mean, keep in mind, I'm a noob. I'm like,
right.
And I'm like, oh, I'm trying to be cool. Hi, I'm Ken. It's really nice to meet you. I'm a big fan. And and that's the thing that people say. And you're like, yeah, I get it. But Will looks at my badge and he goes, very nice to meet you, Ken. Nicest dude, man. Reverend Guitars. Now, I've never heard of that. Tell me about that. And I'm like, all right. There are these really cool guitars, and they have this like bolt-on style 25.5-inch neck, but there's these phenolic bodies, and they're all semi-hollow and different pickups. And I ran through the whole thing that I ran through with you guys over there when I was talking about the Ashton thing, and was like, well, I'm gonna have to check that out. He's here at the show. He's like, yeah, he's right downstairs. So about a half hour later, I walked by Joe's booth, and Will is writing Joe a check, and Will had like bought 2 guitars, and I was like, oh, this is cool. and as I walk up, Will's like, well, no, that's Ken. That's the guy I talked to. He's a real nice guy. And Will leaves, and Joe's like, dude, how'd you do that? And I was like, I wasn't even trying. I just talked. And then Joe said to me, though, I'm going to bring you to every single one of these. And that was it for me. And I've been to every NAMM show ever since.
That's awesome.
And it was amazing. And of course, Will has become a friend of the company, and we've become now, it's just weird how all that, if I put myself in that place, in that moment where this whole ball started rolling, it's crazy.
All because of Sandpaper.
Yeah, Sandpaper.
Out there.
That's
you Sandpaper
the story.
salesmen, there's still hope for you.
There is.
It could lead you to be the CEO of a killer rock and roll guitar company. That was delicious. I love it. Very, very cool. Okay, so that's how you got interested in it.
That's how I got interested.
So, our CA house.
Yeah.
They're going to come in and check these guitars out.
Yes.
Tell them about them. Tell them why they should pick up a Reverend instead of something else.
So Joe Naylor is the designer of all of these instruments, and one of the things that we're proud of here at Reverend, and one of the reasons why I think that we've had some success, and it's so funny because I've been hearing, man, you guys are blowing up. I've been hearing that for the last 20 years. I'm still waiting for the explosion. But the thing that I think is, it's a very difficult business to make a name for yourself in. And we are making a name for ourselves. And the reason for that, the number one thing that I think I can attribute that to is we are doing original guitar designs that aren't so wacky that they're unapproachable to the average player, the above average player, the professional player. The people who have been around this business for a long time look at our guitar and it's familiar enough that they know what it is, but it's different enough to pique their interest. And that is a really hard place to be. I think it's very difficult to design with that in mind and be successful. And and which is why in this business you see so many direct copies. And I'm now, obviously, with our Pete Anderson series and some of our artist guitars, we have some things that look very familiar. Clearly, this Greg Koch model is based on something, obviously. But when we work with artists, we want to make the exact guitar that the artist is playing. So when you look at Greg Koch and you see his model for sale on our website, you can know that when you go to the CA house to buy one of those, Rick Vito's Soul Shaker, Rick Vito is out touring with this exact instrument. No difference between what we sell to the CA house to get to you guys and what the artists are actually using. And I think that's huge, and that kind of confidence sort of carries itself across the line. Naylor, because we're only a 20-year-old company, we're not held down by the weight of our own legacy. So we can do whatever we want, and people don't look at it and go, "Oh, you can't do that," like they will with the legacy brands.
Right.
It's very, very hard for the legacy brands to innovate, and it's easier for us to do it. Which is kind of weird, but kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
And so whenever Joe comes up with an idea for improving a guitar, we just do it. We use Carina for the bodywood on everything that we make. Carina was, of course, brought into the guitar business basically from the furniture business, where it's the wood of the white limba tree. It's been used in the furniture business for years, but it was brought into the guitar business by Gibson in the late 50s on Explorers and Vs and such. Really, really cool sounding tone wood. It has a lot of the same tonal properties as mahogany. It has that real throaty mid-range, only without the weight. It's beautiful and natural finish, which I don't have anyone around me to show you. Sorry about that, but you can see those at the CA house or on our website. But it is it's a really, really cool bodywood to use on a guitar, and we use it across everything. And we don't have to charge a premium for it because it's something that's available to us. Right. And we're not just doing it on this or that. We're doing it on everything. So, yes, I mean, our guitars might be a little bit more expensive than some of the other stuff in the mid-priced range, but that's one of the reasons. Locking tuners. We feature locking tuners on all the guitars, and it seems like such an easy thing. You know how pin lock tuners work, right? I don't have to tell you. You unscrew it, the pin comes up, holds the string in place. Okay. So when the pin lock tuner was invented, why would anybody use anything else ever again? Trem or no trem makes no difference. On a hardtail guitar, you break a string on stage, you pull it through, you lock the pin, you tune it up, you're done. It makes string changing so much easier. It makes your techs, if you're a pro, it makes your tech's job so much easier. I talk to guitar techs from bands all the time that are like Billy Corgan's guitar tech. Oh my God, the locking tuners, dude, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it seems like such a little thing, but they work. They do exactly what they're supposed to do, and they make life easier. So it seems like I'm going off on some like little thing, but
it's the little things, though.
But it's
the details that make that is.
It's the details that make it work. And so this is our Sensei, which is one of our set neck guitars. And again, Carina body, double cutaway. You look at it, you know what it's going to do, right? But it's still got its own vibe, and it's contoured really, really nicely to be very, very comfortable. It's got those rail hammer pickups that I blathered on about in an earlier video. The bass contour control on all of our standard guitars. And I can give you the rundown on that. It's real easy. I don't want to get into this being a playing demo, but check it out. That's all the controls all the way up on the bridge pickup. And as you back off the bass contour, you're actually rolling out low frequencies the same way a tone control rolls out the highs, or similar. I guess you could say you're adjusting the frequency center of the instrument. So with the traditional tone, you hear the guitar getting muted. And then with the bass contour, you hear it getting thinner. So you could take a 2 humbucker solid body, hear the difference?
Huge.
fun. And yeah, there's a little bit of volume drop because there's signal loss. If you look at this being the full frequency range, right, and this is the high end of your EQ and this is the low end. I've gotten so good at this, I can do this backwards.
That was pretty awesome.
When you roll off your tone control, you're making your EQ curve look like this, with the highs gone. When you roll off the bass contour, you're making it look like this with the lows gone. So this much of the signal is going out of the input jack. So the fun thing to do with it is if you take a nice single channel rock amp like this Naylor, this Friedman behind me, and you roll the bass contour all the way off, and you crank the bass and the mids on a single channel tube amp in order to compensate for it, and then right at your fingertips, you can roll in gain as you increase the signal going into the front of the amplifier. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like this is like
it's almost spiritual,
right, man? It's cool.
It is. It's very cool.
And I mean, I'm still excited about it. This here, let's switch guitars.
You can tell you're excited about it.
We're talking about this. So, Naylor and the innovations that go on in these instruments. This is the Air Sonic. This was released in 2018. It's won multiple awards already. Joe, Editor's Pick Award Guitar Player. Joe won a design award from Architectural Design magazine in the state of Michigan for some of the work he's doing for us. It's super cool. So what's going on here is this is a completely new concept in the electric guitar. Normally you think of this as an inside-out semi-hollow. Okay, so the wings on the top and the bottom of the guitar are carved very, very thin. Leaving the center block your sort of normal solid body guitar sized. So with the mass underneath of the bridge from the center block, you get all the initial attack and sustain that you would get from a regular solid body. But with the wings being very, very thin and these F-holes carved right through them, the wings resonate freely when you play it. And so the guitar sounds like somewhere between a cross of a solid body and a semi-hollow with zero feedback issues because it's a solid body, so there's no air vibrating inside the thing anywhere. Nobody's ever done anything like this. This is a Naylor thing. There's little throwbacks from little companies, little ideas of it. Ampeg did the bass in the late 60s that had the through the body F-holes, but it wasn't designed the way this one is. And then back to the whole all the premium features all the time. All of the bolt-on models have roasted maple necks. Some of them have maple fingerboards, some of them have Pau Ferro fingerboards, but the roasted maple is basically like a kiln-dried maple. They actually kiln dry the wood before the neck is carved, so if you'll notice the neck has a slightly darker hue than your normal maple neck. If you were to actually cut this, it is that hue all the way through because of the process to kiln dry the wood before the neck is made. And what that does is it makes it less susceptible to humidity changes while the guitar is new. Every once in a while, being from Ohio, you guys, we still get the fret sprout if you get that weekend where it's minus 20 degrees like we had a couple months ago here this year.
Crazy.
There's going to be a little bit of shrinkage, but with this, it's nowhere near as severe. And then it's same with the stability for your truss rod adjustments. But the thing is, it looks cool and it feels cool. It's just got this really silky smooth feel to it that really works. And the roasted maple necks again are high-end features on high-end guitars, and they're on everything because we can and we will. So this leads me to the back to the Mirr music over there in Korea. I am asked often, well, okay, so you have this Charger 290, you have this guitar, it's completely dialed in, this is one of your most popular models. Why don't you do a version of this that you make in Toledo? If I were to try to make this guitar here with all the features that are on this guitar and with having to paint the guitar here in the States, the guitar would cost $2,800. And at the additional cost, I would only be chasing the quality of what I can get from Mirr Music, who has been making instruments for 75 years. They have it dialed in. They have the process dialed in. And yes, the bodies are done in CNC machines. And this is important vintage guys will like to talk about hand making bodies and stuff, which is super cool. I've got some handmade stuff in here, and I love that stuff. It's great. I'm making workhorse guitars for active musicians and collectors, and I want every guitar to be perfect. And if you take a handful of 50-year-old vintage guitars and really start looking at them, you'll find that the neck joint on every single one of them is different. And you can take 1,000 Reverends and the neck joints are all the same. And the fit and finish is very, very tight. You'll notice our crazy little 6-bolt Reverend logo neck plate.
I love that logo. It's cool.
But yeah, and I do too. It's bad
very
bone,
cool.
yeah. That's Naylor too. I mean, he's done the lightning bolts. Were originally on the face of the Naylor amps, as you can see down here next to me. That's where that comes from. But the neck joints are so tight because they're precision engineered, and it just makes for a better guitar. And so we're sort of utilizing sort of the modern technology to do these things and to do them right. And
Consistency.
I hope you dig it as much as I do, and I do. I can and will dig it, as Craig says.
As you should dig it.
As Craig says.
Dig it.
Indeed.